Okay.
There you go. We are live. Yay! Finally, we made it. Do you want to start us off with an intro to you and your books, Lynn?
Okay, so this book, Troubled Tide, is number 5 in the D.I. Shona Oliver series. And Shona is a detective who's based on the Solway Firth in southwest Scotland, but she's also a lifeboat volunteer. And so the series follows both her work as a detective and the crossover into her work, with the lifeboat, and occasionally it crosses over quite heavily, and the cases that the rescues that she's involved in are also sometimes cases that she investigates as well. So this particular number 5, Troubled Tide, this begins with a charity triathlon event at which Shona is there with the lifeboat, and one of her young colleagues, who she has her eye on, possibly to get her into CID, gets in distress in the water, and what begins as what looks like an accidental drowning, as the story progresses, it begins to look like it's something a lot darker.
Yeah, it is. That's a good description. Well, I think the last time we had you on might have been to talk about the first book in this series. So it has been a while if this is book 5.
Yes, it was. I think it was. It must have been maybe 2020 when the first book came out, because I know it was just around the time of COVID. And yeah. So yeah, we're on book 5 at the minute. I'm currently writing book 6, and there will be a 7. So well into the series now.
Do you have? This is a question I always ask people when they're writing a series. Do you have like a number of books in mind for the series that you would like to get to? Do you know, has it got like a natural end?
Yeah, there is. That's something I did think about it. I knew right from the beginning that I wanted to write a series rather than a standalone, and that was partly because I think with the series, particularly with the police procedural, which is what this is, with the series, you get a chance to hang out with your characters for hundreds of thousands of words. So there's also the chance to kind of develop a bigger arc with them and follow them through their lives. And that was the kind of appeal for me. I heard Ian Rankin talking about this in terms of the Rebus books, that he had this idea that it would follow Rebus through his life. And that I found that really appealing. But in terms of the actual arcs, there was the idea that I would do 7 or 8, and then I might decide to go and write something else. But you're always happy when your publisher comes back. It wasn't 7 books straight off. It was 2 or 3 books at a time I was being contracted to write. So some of the arcs have finished within the series, but some of them are more overarching as well. So there's been some planning, and then, oh, do you know what? That might be a better idea. Let's do that. And that's the kind of flexibility I've had with these, which is great as an author. I think if you plan it, what I find is if I plan it, it's almost tempting fate. Even with the individual books, if I plan them, and it's fine, I just have to write up, the full first draft. It's tempting fate, because you think, do you know what would be a good idea? And then you change something. So I tend to not plan very tightly, but I've got a fair idea on what's happening across, all 7 books. I know where they're going. So I'll have to wait and see what happens with number 7.
Whether it is the last. How important do you think it is when you're writing a police procedural to get your procedures as accurate as possible?
I I think you need to get enough right to make that world function and be believable. For me, part of it was to make sure that I got the Scottish procedure with Scots law and the English procedure separate, because it takes place on the border, because the Solway Firth is on the border between Cumbria and Dumfries and Galloway, and actually Northern Ireland as well. So it's a great crossing place, but it also has these different systems that butt up against each other. And it was, I make a big effort to make sure I get those right. But I think there's a point at which you have to say, this is fiction, and how is this story going to work? Because most of it is probably quite boring. I get that when I talk to police officers, I get the impression that it's a lot of paperwork and a lot of kind of footwork. So you want to skip past anything that might be a kind of boring bit. You see, and readers are very knowledgeable now, particularly over things like forensics. So you want to make sure you get, as close to what is the reality as you can, without it getting in the way of the kind of pace of the story.
And how? Sorry, carry on.
No, I was going to say, and I think that applies to the procedure on the lifeboat as well, because they've been really helpful in. I'll go with them like, this is the scenario, this is what I've got in the book, and they'll say, no, that's not how it would happen, and then they would tell me, and I think, oh, do you know what? That is better. That is much, much more interesting if that's what happens. And so, yeah, to get that element right as well, because it's not facts. You're not writing documentary, you're writing fiction. But so often, the topic is so interesting that there's plenty there to fictionalize, and get it right as you can as well.
There's the fact that she works on a lifeboat makes it quite interesting, doesn't it? But that's a thing I always find interesting, because police procedurals, I think, is like the most kind of like written part of the crime world, if you know what I mean. That's where most crime books sort of sit, isn't it? So how do you make yourself stand out when you're kind of writing in that really busy field?
Amongst police procedurals, yeah. Yeah, I think that it comes down to character, doesn't it? You want your character to be somebody who you want readers to hang out with, and who you as a writer want to hang out with as well, because you're spending even more time with them than readers, because it takes almost a year to produce a book. So I think it comes down to that character within the procedure as well, and things in terms of the actual procedure is changing all the time. It's evolving all the time, particularly in relation to various things that have happened over things like corruption and treatment of suspects. It's always evolving and always changing. So in terms of making it stand out as a procedural, it's down to the character. It's down to D.I. Shona Oliver, and I hope she stands out.
Well, she stands out, doesn't she, from some of her things, like being on the lifeboats and stuff like that. You've also got the location, like you said, with it being on the borders, that makes it quite interesting.
Yeah, and she's somewhat inherited a B&B to run as well, which was originally her husband's business, and unfortunately at this stage he's not around on a regular basis. I won't give away the plot really, but so she kind of inherited that and had to make those kind of adaptations. And I think that I put that in because it kind of reflects the reality of life in these places where people are doing multiple jobs, and to being part of the community in different ways. So people know them as, different, with different hats on, effectively. And that's what everyone has juggling, So that was a very deliberate, reason to put it in. But yeah, the location is, I was so pleased when I found that location, because I knew it a little bit from family holidays and from traveling there in the past, but it was that idea of the border and also if you kind of run out of homegrown crimes, you can import some more. But also the way if you put two systems up against each other, that Scots law and English law, and you've got Northern Ireland as well, and you've also got the Isle of Man, which is a law unto itself just about, and you put them all together, and that's a kind of interesting thing to explore, because I was a big fan of The Bridge, you know, the Scandi noir TV series, The Bridge, which was between Denmark and Sweden, I think that was set, and they have, you know, it's the same but different. Those, how your neighbors are different to you. So yeah. So that, you know, that's an element that I thought would be fun. It'd be fun to write.
It's a really interesting concept, isn't it? The bridge.
Yes. Yeah.
You've gone with that. I guess as well, it's not when you're writing, because Scottish crime is like flourishing, isn't it? Well, it's been flourishing for years. It's Scottish crime writing's like the pinnacle, isn't it? So I guess finding a bit of Scotland that's not already taken over by a great detective might be quite hard.
That's what I did look at that when I decided I was going to write this series, because I'd written a couple of books beforehand which hadn't got published. You know, I got me an agent but hadn't got published, and they were set in England. But it was my agent who suggested I'm allowed to look at you know, a police procedural set in Scotland. But it is quite hard everywhere you go. Everywhere I lived in Scotland, I lived all over. I looked, and there was already one or two, sometimes three, you know, places like Glasgow and Edinburgh. And I was pleased. There are you know, there are a couple around that area, but I thought there's room. I thought there was room, you know, for more. And it does have that kind of it's a great, that physically the setting of the Solway Firth is great, because it is beautiful but dangerous, really dangerous. And you've got the mountains as well. And ideally, I think I wanted to write something where, well, firstly, that I could quite happily go and research as well, but also that readers would like to hang out there, you know, and maybe even visit the places, because I use a lot of real places to base places on in the book. Sometimes I change the name and just adapt them a little bit, but at other times, you know, they're there. I think, well, yeah, let's use them.
Do you ever then publish like pictures of the book locations when you've got the book coming out?
Yeah, I think the Troubled Tide, some Freaks and Galloway Life did an article, and the Scotsman also did it. They asked me to write about the location, and what had drawn me to that location, and what I'd used for each book, you know, and because there's a history of things like smuggling and things, so you know, that's great, you know, to get that in. And when I thought about the series, one of the other things I wanted to write about was the Border Reivers, who were a bit further inland, but they were like this kind of mafia organization, really, that held both the Scottish and English crown at bay for hundreds of years, and basically did their own thing. And I thought they were fascinating, but I couldn't immediately think of a storyline for them, so I had to wait to book 3 for The Girls in the Glen, to bring in the whole kind of concept of the Border Reivers, and that begins with an archaeological dig, finding a body, a historical dig, looking into the Reivers time period, and you know, and finding a body which necessarily isn't as historical as they first thought it was. But you know, it's great when that happens, when you haven't had, oh, I'd love to write about this, or I'd love to write about that. And in Troubled Tide, it was thinking about the whole thing with triathletes, who I think are just a bit mad. Frankly, I'm not a triathlete myself, but I went out and I spoke to some of the local dookers who go in the sea, and it just seems, you know, I'm a sailor rather than if I'm in the sea, something's gone badly wrong. That's the kind of way I look at it. But they were all kind of incredibly brave, but also incredibly in touch with their environment. And I thought that would be interesting, to write about that level of bravery and also the kind of level of interaction you have, because you become then more interested in things like water quality and the conservation element of what it means to get clean water as well. So yeah, it's a great. It's the series means there's a chance to kind of work through different elements as they come up as I'm discovering them.
And I guess in this, where we're looking at the joy of your location as well, because the location's almost helping the story along a little bit, isn't it? By providing all those things that you need.
Oh, absolutely. I think that is a feature of Scottish crime. I think that in most Scottish crime, whether it's police procedurals or standalones, the landscape does loom large, and I think you have to. It's great for me with this because it provides menace. It provides where things can go badly wrong, even if you don't think they're about to go wrong. It can turn around and kind of bite you, and so that's already there. But also, it's kind of beautiful to look at as well. Yeah, beautiful but deadly. I think that's what you want for a crime series.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably why Scandinavian crime is so popular as well. If you think about it, it's very similar in location, isn't it? Beautiful, but you don't want to be out there on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the more research that I've done and the more people that I've talked to in that area, I've got even more respect for nature than I did before. The thin line between things going well and things going badly really is paper thin at times. And definitely with Scandinoir, it gives you that kind of brooding sense, that ominous sense that you're alone against the elements as well. And I think that Scottish crime as a kind of genre is very popular in certain parts of the continent. So I know Germany it's very popular, and Irish crime as well. They like the kind of Celtic crime, joins the two together. So I suppose it's if you we like Scandi crime. They like and they like cozy crime. Apparently, cozy crime's a big thing in Scandinavia too. So yeah, I suppose it's whatever really takes your fancy. But I think the landscape is a major element of this kind of tart noir thing. But also, if you think about cozy crime, that's generally that idea of a village. It's all very pretty. It's all very picturesque. So that's about the location as well.
It's all confirming with me why I'm happy living in a city.
Yeah, I live in a very small village, and my mother calls it the Midsummer Murders Village. It's not anything to do with that, but from watching it on TV, that kind of shows obviously thinks that beneath the surface of the church and the green and the nice pub and all that kind of stuff, everybody's out to kill each other.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm very much a city slicker.
Mm.
I'm not good with nature and things like that. I like to visit, but I don't want to stay.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know. I think I like it. I like it all. Frankly, I think you get that different element. I grew up basically in Glasgow, which is about as city as you could get. But I like the wilds as well. It's nice to have that balance, nice to have that choice, which is one of the amazing things about the UK, that you have all that choice, without having to do what you would necessarily do in the United States, which is drive for 12 hours, to have a change of scene. So it's, we're quite lucky here with things like that.
I'm being distracted by the books behind you. I'm trying to look at what you've got. A very good backdrop for an author chat. The whole pile of books.
Yeah, well, I mean, I must admit, I'm a bit of a book hoarder. I don't like to. When I've got them, I like to keep them. And audiobooks as well. I'm a bit of an audiobook fan. as well. So yeah, I'm out of bookcases. I need to find some more bookcases and find some more book nooks in the house, really.
Me too.
But I think when you have them, beyond a certain extent, when you have them, they just multiply on their own anyway. So, you know, you're never going to get rid of them then.
I've got piles on the bookshelves. Look.
Oh, yeah, so you have. Yeah. Well, I can't actually show you this, but I put up above me. You can't actually see it there, but right up above me, there is there's like a mezzanine floor for this room. And guess what's up there?
Lots of books.
Piles of books.
Brilliant. So on that basis, what have you read recently and really enjoyed? Because you've got piles and piles of books. You can give us some good recommendations.
Yeah, what have I read recently? I've been writing, so I've been reading less recently. But what I have read is Callum McSorley's Paperboy, which is the follow-up to Squeaky Clean, which won the Bloody Scotland first novel. In fact, I think it won both awards. I think it won the Book of the Year as well. And that is a real slice of Glasgow noir. It's quite gory at times, but it's got that dark humor about it as well. So I've just finished reading that. Before that, I read I've been nagging everybody about this book, All the Colors of the Dark, which was just, you know, Chris Whitaker, which is just an amazing book. It just takes you on this long journey through the lives of these two main characters. And I think it took him 4 years to write, because so it's a big book. So, you know, but once you're in that life, once you're in that world, you just you don't want it to end. I have that with big books, you know, because I loved all the Shard Lake, C.J. Sansom, I like historical fiction as well. And, you know, I didn't really want to leave these books. Hilary Mantel, of course, as well. Yeah, I love Hilary Mantel. And everybody keeps saying, these books are really big. And I'm like, oh, I don't care. I just want to stay in that world, you know, so...
I really like historical crime fiction. Georgina Clark is someone I've been reading recently in historical crime that's really good.
Oh yeah, 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 and I like the Sean McLean's books as well. The Alexander Seton series and things, which is it's nice to go and explore a time period and a place that you don't necessarily know very well. I mean, the other thing I read recently, which was it's not crime as such, but it's Tracy Chevalier's The Glassmaker, which is set in Murano in Venice. But it's a very clever thing, and it's a bit of a time shift novel. It takes one character or one family and just takes them through 400 or 500 years. The families just stay the same. And it sounds like, oh, how's that going to work? But once you're within that environment, the environment is painted so beautifully that it doesn't seem like an odd thing. And then you get to learn all about glassmaking, which I knew nothing about. But that's the kind of fascinating way to absorb the culture. It's like when you go to places, it's always such a great thing to read fiction that's set in the place you're visiting, because that's a great way to absorb that kind of cultural element as well. I've got one more recommendation talking about elements, which I read recently, which was My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones, which is a fabulous title, My Heart is a Chainsaw, but it's a crossover with horror, and a crime horror crossover, which I know horror has become quite popular recently. It's not something I read a lot of, but he's a member of the Blackfeet Nation. So he's a Native American, and you get absorbed in that culture as well from reading that book. But it's also a great read. I learned a lot about slasher movies from that book, which I never knew I didn't know.
No, I read a book a while ago by Grady Hendrix. It's a horror movie called The Final Girl Support. He's a horror writer. It's called The Final Girl Support Group, and that's all about the final girls in slasher movies.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, so My Heart's a Chainsaw is about the central character is trying to work out if she is the final girl, or not, and how that affects what she's going to do next. So yeah, it's great. But the course that I did the MA crime course, which is just coming up for its 10th anniversary this year at University of East Anglia, and that course it brings in people from all the world who want to write crime. So inevitably, it does open your horizons. You begin to realize that it's, in Britain, in Scotland and England, and in Wales and Ireland, we like our crime fiction, but so do other cultures as well. So it's not something that's just specific to us. Japanese crime fiction is huge in Japan, and of course, America, has got plenty to teach us about, writing crime fiction, writing thrillers. So it's always interesting to see what other countries do as well. And French crime fiction, getting that in translation it's a fabulous opportunity to dip into that culture and see what is the priorities for them. What do they feel about those big questions like right and wrong, good and evil, and how we treat different members of society, as with their status, what confers status in a society, and who is the outsider. So those are all really kind of important themes for crime fiction, and it seems like it's a global thing.
It is. And going back to that edge of horror that we were talking about, where we've got like final girls and things like that are like, there's that kind of tropes of those movies or novels. Is there any like tropes that you were keen to kind of avoid in yours?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I try to make sure that not all the victims are young white females, because I do feel that that is something that it becomes almost like shorthand. And what I also try to do is to make sure that the victim, who normally, if it's going to be a crime novel, the victim gets killed at the beginning, or or their body is found or something like that. What I try and do is make sure that we know that victim, we know who they are, so that they're not just a kind of cipher for dead white girl. And that I feel that that's really important, that we dig into who they were as people, and not try and glorify the crime as such, because there's got to be menace in there, and everybody wants to know who did it for sure. But to never, I don't want readers to ever to lose sight of the fact that this is within the confines of the novel a real person, and their death has ripples that kind of go out. And I think that came to me really from before I was a crime writer. I was a newspaper photographer, and I worked for the nationals, and I worked for some of the regionals as well. But often, one of the parts of the job would be you would end up encountering families of murder victims, and I think that really brought it home to me that it's more than just that event. That shouldn't define that person's life. So that I try and kind of avoid that, and try to make the victims rounded. I know what they want, to know what their motivations were, because sometimes that's what leads them into danger in the first place. So I just think it's relevant to the story as well. Yeah.
We've got Donna has said hello. Who's watching? And Sarah Blackburn, she says she's traveling, so she's going to catch up later, but she's said hello. I wonder where she's been traveling. Maybe somewhere exciting. Who knows?
Quite lovely. Yeah. It's been so gorgeous this week. It's been absolutely glorious, hasn't it? And I've actually been up in Dumfries and Galloway this week, working on getting a bit of writing done for the next one. So I was expecting it to be gloriously rainy, so I could just sit inside and write, but it was a bit distracting. It was distractingly lovely. Yeah, it's not always the best thing when you're trying to get some words down.
I'm enjoying it because I'm on holiday from work, so it's quite nice.
Right. Yes. Yeah. You definitely hit it right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't have a lot of choice. I'm a teacher, so I just have the holiday when it's everybody's holiday. But
I noticed this. I drove down from Scotland today, and it was yes, it was busy. It was busy in the services and on the roads with all the kids and everybody trying to make the most of this. You just hope it stays good for them for the whole week, really.
oh, we've got 2 weeks. It's Easter.
Oh, we've got 2 weeks. Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to work out again. This is a kind of Scotland, England kind of area thing. What all the different holidays were, because it definitely some of Scotland was on holiday last week, and some was on this week, and yeah, I think they're back for a bit and then off again. Because Easter's coming fast, isn't it? Mm.
Well, it can vary depending on where you are. I went to high school and a little bit of primary school in Stoke-on-Trent, and until I think I was in like year 9 of high school when they stopped it. But they used to have like a Potter's holiday that was only a time in Stoke-on-Trent had.
Right, yeah.
And you just had your school holiday at the time when the potteries had their holidays, because that's what the main business is.
Yeah, didn't they used to have Hop Week? Was it Hop Week they had in Kent, where they got all the pickers came down? I think the pickers came down from London. The children got a week off school or a fortnight off school, and all the families came down and picked the hops in the hop fields. Okay, so it was like around that harvest time. Really, their holidays were kind of around that.
Yeah, I think they're like getting phased out now, and it's a shame.
Yeah, it is, particularly they've got that kind of regional kind of connection. Because I can remember my grandmother talking about Tatty Week, where the kids all got a week off school to go and pull tatties, pull the potatoes up. That would have been that would have been just before. That'd be like the new potato. So about June, they'd all get a week off to go tatty hoking. They called it.
It's probably not what you want to spend your holiday doing now, but
That's the highlight of your year. Oh yeah.
it's an interesting thing there, isn't it? The regional variations, because I think that's the other thing that makes UK crime fiction so interesting. Because we're going back to yours, where you've got the two or three sort of different kind of things butting together in the Solway Firth. You've kind of got all those interesting little idiosyncrasies of different towns.
Yeah, and it's across that quite small area. There's quite a variation, even things like accents. So one of my characters, Murdo, he's from Langham, which is in the very east part, the borders, and that is Scots. It's Scots they speak rather than English. It's a very definite accent. So I was when I was writing him, particularly for the girls in the Glen, when he goes home at that point, home to Langham. I was listening. YouTube is great for authors, isn't it? I was listening to what it sounds like to have that accent in that particular area. So I mean that's absolutely a great resource, and it's great fun to do. One of my characters is in the series is Freya. She's from Orkney, so that's a place I like to spend a bit of time. So that was great to have a bit of the Orcadian syntax and some of the dialect words as well, because I think that helps you differentiate the characters on the page as well. If you're reading, dialogue, you want to know who's speaking. And it makes it kind of easier that way if they've all got kind of these idiosyncrasies of their own dialogue. That can help. And I discovered that that Border Scots, Langham Scots, is not like East Coast Scottish Scots and the Scots that I would hear from my East Coast family. So yeah, it's like you think, oh, it's like learning another language here, which you only half realize. Yeah. And I have actually got I've got amongst all my books I do have the Essential Scots Dictionary, so I can check the spellings of things as well.
That must be helpful. Donna says she's going to see if where she lives, Dunstable or Luton, has they've got rid of them where I went to school, to be fair, Donna, but she's going to see if they have like regional things, but she suspects not. I think I like sort of those regional differences and accents and things because it's a thing. Having a slightly sort of, I've moved a few times as a child, so I've never really picked up like the accent of everywhere I've lived, if you know what I mean, or I've picked up weird bits of everywhere I've lived. And it's quite nice because then I sort of associate lots of different accents with being at home.
Yeah. I mean, I think Cumbria is another place that's got a fascinating history of, and the accent there. It's so different. When I was I think it was the Girls in the Glen. I was researching that, and I couldn't get anywhere to stay in Langham, so I stayed in Longtown, which is just over the English border, and with literally crossing the River Usk, it went from a Cumbrian accent, and on the other side, it was a Scottish accent, and I think it was partly because the schools don't mix, so you're within that environment, even though geographically you're very close to each other. You've got these kind of distinct, almost tribal environments, and that helps, to keep it separate. But I do think it's great, all those old kind of myths and legends as well, the kind of regional stories. When I was writing The Gathering Storm, which takes place, Robert Burns, the poet, was somebody else I wanted to have in the stories not in a kind of tartan shortbread tin sort of way. I wanted Robert Burns the radical, because he was quite an interesting character, and we tend to just think of him as the poet that wrote Auld Lang Syne and Tam O'Shanter, and he liked to drink and things like that. But he had this very interesting kind of political awareness, which was just redolent of that time. So as a device, I had them making a film about Robert Burns in the Solway. But then it was great to be able to go to look for things that were the stories that were associated with smugglers. And there was all sorts of ghostly pipers in caves, and caves that had witches in them as well. So there was a whole series all along the coast. And some of them, I kind of, there was the Piper's Cave, which goes in a very, very long way. And the legend is that a piper went in playing and was never seen again. But if you go in, you can hear the ghostly piper. But I went in about 20, 30 feet. And at that point, a couple of nesting birds shot out. That was scary enough for me. And I was like, right, okay, I'm not going any further into this cave on my own, and it backs onto the Solway, where there's lots of quicksand, and the tide comes in very quickly, but it doesn't really come in as like breakers. It comes in under the sand and then comes up. And it's almost like if you're not looking at it, and then 5 minutes later you look, it's like the water's come up like this, and you've had no sense that it's coming in. It's quite disorientating, and it's why people get stranded on pieces of beach when they don't realize, because you don't realize the tides that are coming in. So that's plenty of work for the lifeboat. Then either people or yachts and things get stranded. But that just all makes it fun, doesn't it? I love to research. I love to go out and hear these stories.
It's really interesting. What have you got any other kind of literary events planned?
I think I've got a couple of Waterstones events in Scotland. I'll put those up on the website in May. And I think that's about it at the minute. I've just done a couple in Dumfries and Galloway, and so that's nice. It's always nice and slightly intimidating to go and meet local readers, because you think, oh, if I get it wrong, I'm going to hear about this, aren't I? But people are kind of very generous about stuff, because it is fiction. It's not necessarily, as long as the story is interesting, then you're allowed a little bit of license to move things around.
Yeah, definitely. Are you going to go to any of the book festivals? To go to Bloody Scotland or anything like that?
Yes, yeah. I normally got to Blake Scotland. That's a great festival. That's also great. It's a fabulous setting as well. And I think I'm going to pop up to Harrogate as well. Harrogate Crime Festival. It's not too far from me. And there's one, Noirich is coming up in Norfolk in September, which, as I said, is 10 years of the crime MA. And I know people like Lee Child are coming in for that. I think it's still in the works at the minute. But yeah, kind of look out for that one, because that's obviously, it's spread over, I think, 2 days. Yeah, I think be some few interesting speakers there. Yeah, I'm at that sort of going through the lists and everything. No, they don't talk very often. Let's go and see them. I know Kate Atkinson's coming to Harrogate, and I know she doesn't necessarily do a lot of events, so it's always nice when you get that chance to hear an author that doesn't necessarily, do a lot of events. It's always worth making that.
I tend to go to Harrogate every year because it's not far from where I live.
Oh, right, yeah. And you're right. The last couple of years have been really lucky with the weather, haven't they? And then there was one year I went, and it was just torrential. And so outside in the tents, it's like, you just come prepared if you have to, run between the tents. But it's that's a great atmosphere, and it's great that you're mixing with readers and people from the publishing trade as well. And I think. Well, crime authors are all lovely. They're all very approachable. So if you see me, come say hello.
We run a live event in Leeds every year as well. So if you're not far, you definitely need to ping us an email and say.
Yeah, definitely. That's because Leeds not far from me. I'm in Lincoln. I'm near Lincoln, so I'm not too far. Yeah, I think I remember you when that came up. Yeah, because it's Leeds is a great city as well. It's got that real vibrancy to it.
I'm laughing because Lincoln is meant to be my town of birth.
Is it?
Yeah. It's the one on my passport. It's I was born on an RAF base.
Ah, right. Yes. Quite a few rounds. Yeah. We have there is a book festival in Lincoln. But I know it's been hard. I think post COVID, it's been very hard for a lot of festivals to keep going, and the format of them has changed in response to that. And I feel like we're still going through, that kind of changing in the format. And also, it's kind of funding for just to hire venues and run events, and it all takes so much work that the volunteers that put all their time in for it. The Bloody Scotland volunteers are always great. You'll always, if you have any questions, you'll get an answer from them, and probably a couple of recommendations for cafes, pubs, and things to see as well. So yeah, it's great fun to do those.
It is, yeah. It's a good. It is fun to do. We are coming up towards the end of our time, so if you want to remind people what they're going to go off and buy.
Right. Okay. So the latest in the Shona Oliver series is Troubled Tide. It literally came out last week, and it's in audiobook. Oh, sorry, it's not. It's in paperback and it's in ebook. But I can tell you there will be Shona audiobooks coming. So that is something that's been resolved recently. And they will be coming. I can't tell you when they are because I don't know myself. But so Troubled Tide is out now, wherever you get your books from.
Marvelous. And then all that's left for me to say is thank you so much for joining us, and sorry about the trouble with getting online.
Don't worry. That was fine. Yeah, that's lovely. But thanks so much for inviting me. So it was great to come and see you guys.
You're welcome back anytime.